Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome to our Shabbat evening service. Let's welcome Shabbat and share a little joy of being together. Hine matovu manaim shevet achim ga. Hine matov. Let's sing that again. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad. Well, Shabbat Shalom. It looks as if Rabbi Black has dropped off the feed. He must be having some internet issues this evening. Hopefully he'll be coming back really soon to join us. In the meantime, my name is Steve Brodsky. I am the Cantorial Soloist and Music Director at Temple Emmanuel. And it's wonderful to see so many of you out there joining us tonight. We will continue with welcoming Shabbat by getting ready to bless the Shabbat candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics, and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's good to be here. My internet went down, but I'm back. So we thank God for many things, including working internet when it works. So we are continuing with Lecha Dodi as we welcome Shabbat, the same way that we would welcome a beloved. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, come, my beloved, to greet the Shabbat, this day that helps us put things into perspective. This is our 18th Chai Shabbat that we are doing virtual Shabbat. So that's a pretty powerful thing to say. 18 times we have done this, and who knows how much longer, but we can be together. We rejoice that we are together. So Lecha Dodi, come, let us all welcome the gift of Shabbat.
Ya la 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 lecha dodi, ya la 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 likrat kala, ya la 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 pene Shabbat nikabela, ya la 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 lecha dodi, ya la 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 likrat kala, ya la 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 pene Shabbat. Shabbat mikabela, Shamor v'zachor ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת וקבלה, לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, ברכה מראש מקדם משוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, יאללה יאללה לה 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 לך דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה, התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בעורף קומי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, יאללה לה 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 לך דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. I welcome you to rise as you are able to face the entrance to whatever space you are worshiping in this evening, and to welcome with us the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam b'simcha uv'tzola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, boi chala, yalla la 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 lecha dodi, yalla la 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 likrat kala, yalla la 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 pnei Shabbat, pnei Shabbat nekabela, yalla la 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 lecha dodi, yalla la 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 likrat kala, yalla la 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 pnei Shabbat, pnei Shabbat nekabela. If you're standing, I invite you to remain standing. If not, you can rise either physically or spiritually as we enter into our call to worship the Baruch Hu. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Baruchu et Adonai Hamivorach. Baruch Adonai Hamivorach. Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la.
Together, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love.
The love that echoes love, that whispers love, that breathes love, in the quiet stillness of morning is leading you toward light, toward understanding, toward God. For love is the pulse of holiness, the beating heart of radiance and wonder, the rhythm of creation, the energy of blessing, the starburst of the divine. The love that echoes in your heart resonates eternal with all beings, with all souls, with the wisdom of the ages and the wisdom of the earth. Yes, love is the pulse of holiness. Let it flow through you. Let your countenance shine majesty from the core of your being to the edge of the universe to fill the world with splendor.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta. We are loved, loved, loved teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one, and we will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please join with me as we chant Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'aderech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha Leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim lelohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem. Emet.
Emet. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Yeah, let's do the right version. Sorry about that. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, no Sepele Noratehi Sepheleh. Who is like you? Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? When Moses and the children crossed the sea, they sang to you with songs of joy. Who is like you, Adonai? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, Norah tehilot, Sepheleh, Norah tehilot, Sepheleh.
Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Together, guide us with your good counsel, for your name's sake be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, va'al kol amo Yisrael, va'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Ve'ha'amidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Those who keep the Shabbat by calling it a delight will rejoice in your realm. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת. וקורא עונג וקורא עונג ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת. עם מקדשי שביעי כולם יפרעו ויתענגו מטובך. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת. וקורא עונג וקורא עונג ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת. והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו. חמדת ימים אותו קראת זכר למעשה בראשית. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת. וקורא עונג וקורא עונג ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת. שומרי שבת. Prayer is at the heart not only of great religion, but of significant living. Without prayer, we cannot scale the heights of compassion or reach the peaks of love of our neighbor, of which we are called and capable together. Prayer is a step on which we rise from the self we are to the self we wish to be. Prayer affirms the hope no reality can crush, the goal that can never acknowledge defeat. Prayer is not an escape from duty. It is no substitute for the deed together. Prayer seeks the power to do wisely, to act generously, to live helpfully. It helps to reinforce the act rather than to replace it. Prayer is the search for silence in the midst of life. Our prayers are answered not when we are given what we asked, but when we are challenged to be what we can be.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Open up my lips and let my mouth declare your praises. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot ve'imahot, Umevi Geula livnei v'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer, U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah rav lehoshia, Morid hatal. Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofech olim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech memit u'mechayeh u'matzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
We take some time now at this almost twilight hour to move away from others' words and find these prayers, these tfilat halev, these prayers that are resonating within, prayers of our hearts, as we take some time to talk to God and pray in silence.
Ose shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimromav, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh Shalom bimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. As we enter into this 18th week of isolation, we also enter into a new chapter of Torah, Parashat Devarim, the last book of the Torah. We've entered into a new month as well, the month of Av, that I'll speak about in just a moment. But right now we begin a new book of Torah, so I want to say a couple words about this week's Torah portion. I want to start with something that has been making the rounds of Facebook as of late. It's a request to describe your favorite movie in the most boring way possible. So I'm going to describe a movie, and I want you to write down in the chat if you can tell what movie I'm talking about. So the first one is, a guy comes to town in Iowa to teach music and doesn't like pool. The second, an ex-nun moves into a big house and teaches the children how to sing. The next one is 101 dogs with spots. That's easy. A college graduate swims and dates mother and daughter. I like that one. A FedEx employee lives by himself on an island for several years. A furry short guy gets a ring and tries to get rid of it. A young woman becomes the first lady of Argentina, sings, and dies. And lost astronauts land on a planet run by talking primates and realize that they can't come home again. Puts those movies in a very different perspective, doesn't it? Well, Devarim is a series of sermons that detail Moses' final instruction to the Israelites as they prepare to enter into the promised land. And in the very first chapter, this week's Torah portion, I see that you're filling those out. That's good. I'm glad. Moses recounts the journey of the Israelites as they prepare to enter into the land of Israel. And he tells his version of what happens. He details their conquest and the turmoil and the rebellion and the punishment. But it's interesting that the story that Moses tells is a little different. It's from his perspective. It's seen through the lens of his own recollection. It's not what we exactly read in the previous chapters. So, for example, in detailing and describing the story of the spies who set out to reconnoiter the land of Canaan and the 10 who gave a faulty report, Moses shifts the focus away from God altogether and puts it on the people. In Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 22, he says, "Then all of you came to me and said, 'Let us send notables into the land ahead to reconnoiter the land for us and bring back word on the route that we shall follow and the cities that we come to.'" But if you look back to Numbers chapter 13, it was God who tells Moses to send the spies. The people didn't ask for it. And then he says Joshua and Caleb were the only ones allowed to enter into the land of Israel, and that the entire previous generation, himself included, would get that privilege, which is true, but he fails to say why Joshua and Caleb were given the honor of going into the land. It was because of their loyalty to God. So in a sense, Moses is kind of taking, at least for this section, God out of the narrative. In the end of his life, he's removing God's presence from the narrative and enhancing his own role in the unfolding of events. Now, our commentators spend a lot of time arguing and talking about, well, they argue about why does Moses do this? Is he angry? Is he frustrated? Is he trying to ensure his place in history? But I think it's much simpler than that. I think it's because we all tell the stories that we know make us feel the best. For example, in 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years from now, how will our children, how will our grandchildren and great-grandchildren learn about this time when our society was shut down by a virus? What will we tell them, and how will our recollections be passed down? Like our examples of boring movie synopsises that I listed in the beginning of this drash, think of some ways we could describe these past 18 weeks. A period where a lot of people learned how to bake challah. There was a moment when we experienced a shortage of toilet paper. Several months when our children sat in front of their computer screens. It was the time when face masks became a fashion accessory. It was that time when synagogues learned that we can have services online and don't have to come into the building. It was that time when women stopped dyeing their hair and men started growing beards, and that time when we wear shorts to work but got dressed up from our waists up. History is based on perspective and bias. Whoever writes history controls the narrative. It's that simple. Think about this. The recent controversies that we're seeing around our nation, around Confederate war statues, the naming of neighborhoods, the changing of names of neighborhoods like Stapleton, sports team names, how we understand crime, policing, healthcare, and even popular music, all revolve around what and how we were taught and the values and importance that society places on the commonly held beliefs that underpin our collective memory. A few years ago, I was at a garage sale. It was actually about 20 years ago. We were in Minnesota, about 25 years ago, and I found a 100-year-old junior high school anthropology book from the early 1900s. I bought it, took it home, and I was appalled when I read how the standardized curriculum of that time in the early 20th century for that school district taught how Native Americans were savages and that Africans and other indigenous populations around the world were to be pitied because they were not exposed to the superior resources and the intelligence of Christian Europe. The 19th century doctrine of manifest destiny, which held that America had a divine imperative to conquer and to subdue the Native American populations of the West, may have succeeded in adding vast territories to our nation, but it also came at a great price, resulting in genocide and horrific crimes against humanity. And certainly the current discussion and soul-searching that our nation is experiencing as we come to grips with the reality of just how much white supremacy has become ingrained into the framework of every aspect of our nation is yet another example of the danger and prevalence of holding fast to beliefs and practices that were created to maintain power and excise our responsibilities for the abuse, manipulation, and exploitation of people of color that built this country. What some might dismiss as cancel culture, others might perceive as long-delayed justice. One person's political correctness is another's passionate desire to set the record straight and gain entrance into doors that were closed to people of their color or their creed or their sexual orientation or beliefs for centuries prior to this. And how we tell our stories reflects not only who we have been in the past, but who we strive to be in the future. Selective memories are normal. We all have them, and most of the time they are harmless. But other times they can be deadly. Now, we have just entered into the Hebrew month of Av, and in 5 days, Jews around the world will be commemorating the 9th day, Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of Av, this fast day where we remember that both temples were destroyed and many other tragedies befell the Jewish people, specifically on this day. Our enemies knew what they were doing. In 1096, the beginning of the very first crusade killed 10,000 Jews in its first month and destroyed Jewish communities in France and in the Rhineland. In 1492, the Jews were expelled from Spain on the 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av. In 1941, SS Commander Heinrich Himmler formally received approval from the Nazi Party for what has become known today as the final solution. The Warsaw Ghetto was destroyed on the 9th day of Av, on Tisha B'Av in 1942. And in 1994, the Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires was bombed by terrorists. Now, for many of us, some of these events are not familiar, but they had huge and devastating consequences on our history as a nation. And so as we enter a new month, a month of soul searching, a month of pain, as we enter a new chapter of Torah, our task in this time of upheaval and national consciousness raising must be to uncover truths, however painful they might be, and use them to build a better world. This is what our tradition teaches we must do. We, who know the pain of being shut out, persecuted, and marginalized, have both an opportunity and an obligation to help make the changes that are necessary to bring us into the promised land. Shabbat Shalom. So, we begin a new chapter of Torah, as I said, and for the honor of reading Torah, our congregant, our national board member of the Union for Reform Judaism, one of our national board members, we have several, Lynn Sunshine, will be reading Torah. Translating Torah will be a member of our board of trustees, Barbara Schwartz, also the president of our sisterhood. And blessing Torah, Steve Brodsky. Go ahead.
Please join with me as we bless the Torah together. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamavorach. Baruch Adonai Hamavorach leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ele hadvarim asher diber Moshe el kol Yisrael be'ever hayarden bamidbar barava Mosuf bin Paran ubin Tofel Belavan Bachatzerot B'dizahav Achad Asar Yom Mechorev Derech Har Seir Ad Kadesh Barnea Vayhi Barbaim Shana Adonai Eloheinu Diber Eleinu B'chorev Lemor Rav Lachem Shevet Behar Hazeh Benu Usu Lachem Uvo Har Ha'emori Bel Kol Shechenav Bahar Uvashvela Uvanegev Uvechov Hayam Eretz Hakanani Behalvanon Ad Hanahar Behagadol Nahar Perat Rei Natati Livnechem Et Haaretz Bohu Ureshu et haaretz asher nishba Adonai, Lahavotechem, Lavram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Lated Lahem, Uzara, Acharehem, Vayomar Alechem, Behetahi Lemor, Luchal Levadi Setetchem, Adonai Elohechem, Irbaetchem, Vehinchem Hayom, Kechochevei Hashamayim Narov, Adonai Elohei Avotechem, Yosef Alechem, Kachem Elef Bamim, Vivarech Etchem, Kasher Diber Lachem.
These are the words that Moses addressed to all Israel on the other side of the Jordan, through the wilderness in the Arabah near Suf, between Paran and Tophel, Laban, Hazeroth, and Di-Sahab. It is 11 days from Horeb to Kadesh Barnea by the Mount Seir route. It was in the 40th year, on the first day of the 11th month, that Moses addressed the Israelites in accordance with the instructions that the Eternal had given him for them. After he had defeated Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, and King Og of Bashan, who dwelt at Ashtaroth and Edrei. On the other side of the Jordan, in the land of Moab, Moses undertook to expand this teaching. He said, "The Eternal our God spoke to us at Horeb, saying, 'You have stayed long enough at this mountain. Start out and make your way to the hill country, the Sephalah, the Negeb, the seacoast, the land of the Canaanites and Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates. See, I place the land at your disposal. Go, take possession of the land that the Eternal swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to assign to them and to their heirs after them.' Thereupon I said to you, I cannot bear the burden of you by myself. The Eternal your God has multiplied you until you are today as numerous as the stars in the sky. May the Eternal, the God of your ancestors, increase your numbers 1,000-fold and bless you as promised."
Please join with me as we chant the blessing after the reading of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chaye olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Lynn. We continue now with the Mishaberach, as we are mindful of people in our congregation who are in need of healing, their friends, their family, people who are beloved members of our community, those we may not even know, but whose names resonate in our hearts. So I'll be reading a list of names in between the two verses, and as always, if there are other names that are not on this list, I ask that you type them in so that all of us might ask for God's healing blessing on their behalf. We pray together. Misheberach Avotenu Kol habracha le'imo source of strength, who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. On this Shabbat we are mindful and we pray for the healing of Zachary Hoffman, David Karner, David Lustig, Marcia Richter, Paul Kamensky, Dr. Carrie McCallie, Natalie Mosier, Corey Franklin, Margaret Glubach, Dr. Howard Miller, Bob Connolly, Lori Markman, Jennifer Butler Poole, Stuart Myers, Shanti Khazan, Robert Tucker, Jenny Brynan, Lynn Pollitt, Sarah Ellen McIntyre, Jeff Cohn, David Bershoff, Lynn McLaughlin Cromar, Cynthia Friedland, Dana Huss, Harold Gluscoder, Libby Bortz, Cyril Beinhorn. And if there are other names, Michael Altenberg, if there are other names that are not on this list, please type them in right now as we ask for God's healing blessing on their behalf. Misheberach imotenu kor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We begin to conclude our service, and I invite you to rise either physically or spiritually as you are able for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. There are stars up above so far away we only see their light long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. As we take some time now to remember those who've been taken from us during this past week, on this Shabbat, we remember Claire Sissenwine and Sally Gass, who were taken from our community this past week. We link to their names those who have been taken from us in the previous 30 days. Dr. Richard Baum, Erwin Chaim, Jody Goodman, Stanley Gottlieb, Marcia Heller, Sandra Heller, Ruth Kolker, Vera Corey, and Leona Rabson. And we remember those whose yahrzeit, the anniversary of whose death, occurs on this Shabbat: Louis D. Alpert, Gettel Atlevak, Robert Begner, Francis Frankie Bloom, Arthur S. Boss, Lyndon Harris Cohen, Adeline Davidson, Esther Diamond, Bibi Gart, Loretta E. Gass, Rube Goldstein, Gabriella Goldsticker, Lieutenant I. Jack Greenberg, Victor Gruber, Ann Felsen, Eva F. Flax, Gordon Friednash, Charlotte Heitler, Hyman I. Hirschfeld, Louis G. Isaacson, Hans Hugo Joseph, Howard M. Katchen, Max Kurtz, Lawrence Edward Cusick, Rebecca Lieberstein, Morris Lieb, Marianne Bell Levy, Gary Lee Levine, Florence Marcus, Bernice Viner Marks, Philip Mobel, Meyer Pepper, Wilma Leah Posner, Shirley K. Rambar, Hersey Edward Rosen, Benjamin Rosenbaum, Max Samuelson, Eva Berger Safro, Albert Schultz, Charles Schwartz, Jesse Schwader, Rita F. Silversmith, Jerry Silverstein, Dr. Herbert J. Simon, Adele Solander, Ruth Marks Stark, Lena Joseph Stein, Sadie Stein, Graham Sussman, Archie L. Taylor, Rhoda L. Tucker, Theodore Wayne, Mildred I. Weiss, Saul Weiss, Archie A. Weisberg, Barbara Walensky, Babette Wohl, Albert B. Wolf, Joseph Zone. We remember 10 of the 420 precious souls from the community of Colleen, for whom our finer chapel is dedicated. Zuzia Klimplova, Dr. Hanus Klinger, Otto Kodacek, Erich Kohn, Helena Kohn, Otto Kohn, Irma Kohonova, Helena Kohonova, Clara Kohonova, and Yindrich Kornfeld. And if there are other names whose names were not read but are in your hearts, write them down so that all of us might ask for God's blessing. And I ask, if you have lost a loved one during the past 30 days, know that we stand with you as you rise, either actually or symbolically. If you are in the 11-month period of mourning since the loss of a loved one, we too rise with you, either symbolically or actually. And if you are observing a yahrzeit, the anniversary of a death on this Shabbat, you may rise as well, and we support and stand with you as together we say these ancient words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, bialma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal Shmei dekudsha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. And may the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved here among us, wherever they may be. And let us all say amen.
Zichronam livracha, we remember them. Zichronam livracha, we remember them.
So a few brief announcements. Tomorrow morning for Shabbat, Everything's taking place on Facebook, except for Torah study, which takes place on Facebook and Zoom. I'll talk about that in a second. At 9 a.m., I will be back, probably with my dog Babka and Yankel, who's back there, if you can see him, for Young Family Shabbat. At 10 o'clock, Steve Brodsky will be leading Torah study, Parashat Devarim. There is a opportunity if you'd like to participate via Zoom. There is a link. I'm hoping that that link will magically appear on the chat in just a moment. If not, you can sign up for it. I believe you should have received an email in the e-notes. And it will also be, of course, on Facebook if you don't want to be in the Zoom. At 11 o'clock, Community Services, led by Rabbi Emily Hyatt and Steve Brodsky. And at 7 o'clock, we have Havdalah that I will be leading. So we look forward to seeing you tomorrow, celebrating Shabbat together. But now, I think it's time for Kiddush and Motzi, is it not, Mr. B?
It is, Rabbi. If you
didn't say Rabbi B.
If you have some wine or grape juice, please join with me as we sanctify Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodesho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh, zecher litziat mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
L'chaim, amen. So I bet you there's challah baking in your house.
Well, today's yes. Not
There is
only
in mine
challah-
too, by the way.
What's that?
There is in, that's what we said. You know, this is that year they already learned to bake challah, right?
Not only challah, but my mother-in-law is here to have Shabbat with us, and they've been cooking brisket all afternoon. So maybe the next iteration of Zoom will feature a smell-o-vision feature, and I can share that with everyone. But you'll just have to trust me that the house smells
That's
amazing
kind of torture,
right
frankly, if you want to know the truth. But okay.
So let's join together, and we will bless these two beautiful challahs. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Amen. What are we closing with, Steve?
We are going to close with a prayer for peace. Oseh shalom bimromav. God who makes peace up high in the heavens. Ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Please send some peace down here for us, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, and for all who live on earth. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yoshvei tevel Shalom bimroma, Ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru,
Eloheinu ve'Elohei kol dorotenu. Our God and the God of every generation, as we begin a new chapter of Torah, as we enter into a painful month, as we count 18 weeks since we've been together virtually online, we ask that when we tell our stories, we do so with an eye of how our telling will impact the future. And as we learn from our experience, let us pledge to improve the world that you give us, even as we tell our stories through our own lenses, our own focus. God, we've come here tonight with joy in our hearts. We've come here tonight with hope in our souls. And we ask your blessing. Bruchim hayinu b'voenu, bruchim nihiyeh b'tzeitenu. Blessed were we in coming here. Blessed may we be as we go forth from this time and always. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
And thank you, Sean Wall, for your hard work tonight.